David Gorodetski, my friend, welcome to Partnering Leadership. I am thrilled to have you in this conversation with me.
Thank you, Mahan, so much. I am excited to be here with you.
I'm really excited knowing some of the impact you've had both in leading your own organization and also in the broader community, talking about some of those leadership lessons that you've learned. But before we get to that, David, would love to know whereabouts you grew up and how your upbringing impacted who you've become.
Oh my God. So I'm originally from Israel. I cannot fool anyone by saying this is a South Jersey accent. No one, no one believe me anymore. And you have no idea how difficult it is to soften my voice right now. So your listener don't think that I'm yelling because most Israelis do all the time. So
A lot of people from the entire Mediterranean region, David, people don't get it. They think they're yelling at each other while they're expressing a lot of love with emotion and passion.
right. We're emotional. So I'll soften myself. Yeah, so I was born and raised in Israel, and I think um, my um, upbringing left marks that made me who I am in many ways and shape who I will be tomorrow. My being a mixed family in many ways, from being Ashkenazi and Sephardic, and kind of in between those two dynamics of the families. That my father came from the more Orthodox, observant Jewish family. My mom did not, and the way we raised, a lot of my social conscious, my empathy to others. My grandma was a Holocaust survivor. I carry that mix of a fighter for justice, a fighter for the right cause, with a very strong empathy for the weak. So um, that's what I carry. I think, yeah.
Well, David, that is really important because you've been able to see that difference in your own life growing up. I also know that your grandfather played a significant role in your life.
Yeah, my grandfather's name was David, just like I am. Um, and I was named after him while he's still alive. That's the tradition with the Sephardic family. He was actually born in Damascus, educated in France, and his family were in Israel before the war. He married my grandma, who was a Holocaust survivor and a drifter. My grandfather was both of them actually, and he in particular, they were my sanctuary. They were my escape. My father was a tough man. I'm an older of three boys. My mom did an amazing job, and I think we all came up pretty well. And my father was a tough one. Not to his fault. I think that was a different generation. The way he grew up, it was not easy. And while not with my grandparents, who live about 20 minutes bus ride from where I grew up, I was with my books and with my drawing and with my, diving into my imaginary dream world. And so my grandfather was someone who I really, really, really love. He was my role model as a man. He was really well educated. He was very patient. He speaks many languages. We sat there on the weekends looking through encyclopedias, and some of them were in English or in French, and I didn't understand a word. And I just pointing to the pictures in the encyclopedia. And he used to explain to me what it means. So as I was growing up, and they kind of prepped me that in my bar mitzvah, when I turned 13, my gift will be a series of encyclopedia. No bicycle, no nothing fancy, encyclopedia. And I was dying for the day to come. But then he got sick. And me growing up in a mix family. At our home, we were kosher because we were more observant because of my father. There was a relationship with God and faith and religion and the praying. And I was pretty naive. Until then, I didn't experience anything heartfelt. Yeah, there was the war. My father was away for a few months, but he came back and everything was fine. And then my grandfather got sick and it was terrible. It was really terrible. And I remember putting all myself out there, like talking to God, praying to God. I mean, in the most childish way, like take me, please save grandpa, please. I would do anything. And there was a moment my mom was avoided to. I'll start over. My mom wanted to protect me from seeing him at his worst, and she didn't allow me to come to the hospital. And at this point, he was unconscious, and I remember that I insisted. I was 12 and a half, and I said, "Mom, I have to go to see Grandpa. I don't care. I'm going. If I don't go with you, I'll just go by myself." And she did. And I walked to the room, and the man by this point was about 2, 3 days unconscious. My grandma was sitting there next to him, holding his hand. I walk in with my mom, a bit shocked. I look at him, I get closer. My grandma said, "Come, hold his hand." I hold his hand and he's open his eyes.
Wow.
And he talked to me, and I didn't know. I didn't understand the medical condition because I thought he was just asleep because I walk in and suddenly open his eyes and talk to me. I didn't think there's anything special in that. But my grandma would start crying, and my mom was like all white. And he said, "I was waiting for you. Take care of grandma. I love you so much." And that was it. A day later, it was gone. And
Wow.
and I was so betrayed by God. and and yeah, when I talk about my relationship with God, my faith, I have a very strong spiritual compass. I do believe in a greater force because even the greatest scientists in the world get to the point where they cannot explain something. So it's very comforting to say something bigger than us created it. And I'm okay with it. I also believe that we as humans see how divided we are. Nations, people, neighbors, colors, men, women. I think that we carry this piece of the divine, of the godness, because once we let it come out, that's our spiritual compass. If we come together, we don't have threats. There's no alien ship sitting over our atmosphere and trying to attack us just yet. Don't look up. But when they do, then we'll come together. And then that God that I'm talking about will come out. But I don't understand it. So for me, my relationship with the organized religion is very complex. I understand and see the value in community building through that organization, but I'm very critical of that in so many other ways. And so only David, don't need no gatekeeper, no filter, no bouncer to allow me to talk to that spirituality that some call Muhammad, Buddha, God, Elohim, whatever the name might be.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, David, the experience you had with your grandfather and the significant impact he had on you has continued to have an impact on who you have become. So, if your grandpa was to reflect on who you are at this point and who you have become, what do you think would have made him most proud of David now?
Wow. I think that he was really proud that I'm nothing like my father.
In what way? You've referenced your father's harshness a couple of times. So in what way are you different from your father that would have made your grandpa so proud?
Listen, it sounds like I'm really bashing my dad, and I'm not. I mean, he was tough man. He was complicated. I guess he has his own trauma in his life, which I never able to learn about. But I know that men who went through trauma are become extreme to their environment, and I guess he went through trauma, and I don't know if it was war or the way he brought up. And myself and my brothers were the one who experienced his extreme. Never my mom. They love each other, but he was crazy. So I was in generation where my father wanted to give us a slap, no one interfere. So listen, I if anything, those marks that he left only taught me what I don't want to be. Okay. And I know that many of us are become a mirror of the way we brought up, very similar to our parents. I knew that I would be nothing like that. And so the reason why I said that my grandpa would be very proud of me not being like my father is because when I went to spend time with my grandparents, when I rented them, they were my sanctuary, is because he also saw the scars that I had at the time, emotional scars that I had at the time being there. And my grandfather was not like that. If there's, but I listen, I want to, I'll put your gap here in case you want to capture that later. I want to make sure that the people who listen here understand that I did have a good father. He gave me a lot of examples that I still carry with me. You know, he was a hardworking man. He took care of his boys and his wife. He was sensitive beyond belief, and I think that combination of experiencing certain trauma and being extremely sensitive make him feel so vulnerable and exposed, and the wall that he built around him were tall and thick. And I can tell you another thing about my dad. Unfortunately, he passed way too young to see us, myself and my brothers, um, becoming men and having family and having kids. And he would have enjoyed it so much to see how far we made it. Um, he got sick with cancer. It wasn't easy. And when he became more fragile and weak and patient because of that, I remember one day we had a conversation and I said, Dad, you know, all those years, all I want you is to give me a hug and to tell me I love you, son. That's all. And he paused and he said, I don't know how to say those words. I don't know how to do that. But every time I bought you something and every time you asked for something and you got it, it was my way to tell you I love you, son. That closed the circle of me a bit more mature at the time to understand that it was really not his fault. Sometimes when we got really upset and really flamed because he saw I left the bicycle outside or something gave me, is not respectful enough. It was because like when I tell you, hey Mahan, I love you, and you tell me, I don't care about your love.
Yeah, it's interesting because David, I think a lot of people from those past generations had difficulty accessing some of their humanity and love and being able to express it in the ways and norms that we do today, which is somewhat different. So you had this upbringing that has influenced you all throughout, made you a lot more empathetic to other people, made you a better human being to be around and a better leader too. What made you choose to go into design?
I was always into arts. Um, and like arts and anything related to the ocean, the sea. I mean, that was in my passion. And I was not sure that I could make a living from being a true artist, like a painter who live with the long hair, doesn't care about anything, and into his own world. That's what I really wanted to be. But then, reality sink, and I thought I have to become something different. And the closest thing to being an artist is to use my um, creative skills. By the way, everyone is creative, but to use my creative skills in something close enough. And that's when I discovered that communication arts and design is really interesting. And I realized and discover a different side of my brain that I haven't been used until then, that has to do with ideation and using the skills of simplifying complex issue into the core, which is a really good skills when you have to communicate things to large audience, when you want to activate people. And that was the beginning. So I'm so happy that I picked that profession, and there haven't been one day that I didn't enjoy what I do because of that profession. Of course, there were a lot of challenging moments, but being who I am and where I got because I made this decision then is something I don't regret.
So, based on that, you were able to open up a design boutique, but why then give that up to go back to school?
Holy shit. Okay, that design boutique was made bags, belts, leather products. And I was right after the military, and I did it with a friend, or I thought it was a friend, and we hit it off. We had a really unique designs, and we start to create stuff. And I remember working into the night and work with the leather. It's very satisfying, like you work with something, instant gratification. You have a bag, and people, oh my God, how did you do that? Can we order 10 more? And I said, how am I going to make 10 more? And you go to this leather factory when they process the leather, and it smells horrible. And I was actually initially into continue that and grow that. And then I discovered that my partner was dealing with drug. My partner was dealing with drug issues.
Oh, wow.
And I decided that it's not healthy for me to be in this environment. But at this point, I also realized that in order to broaden my horizon as a designer, as a creative person that use visual arts and art to create things, I need guidance. I need more solid foundation, and that's when I decided to go back to school.
So you ended up in school in New York after
I
finishing.
I
Go ahead.
end up yeah I end up in school. So I end up in school in Israel first.
Got it. Eventually making it to Parsons School of Design in New York, right?
Yeah.
And after you finished that, you had a choice, David, of going back to where your family, friends, support structure, everything you had known up to that point was, or staying in the States. Why did you choose to stay in the States?
Oh my God. Sometimes I don't know. In retrospect, it was it was really a foolish decision because because everyone's there, and I didn't escape from anything. That the notion of moving to another country and made it my home was not anywhere in my thought process. And I thought for a little bit to open a gap from other people I went to school with, to broaden my horizon. Everything we do as a communicators is another asset in our arsenals or an ability to become better communicator on behalf of someone else. I think that so that's what the why. We decided, okay, another year. Lucky me, or unfortunately, I don't know how you want to call it. No, let's go back. Okay, so that was. I'll give you a gap because I know you're recording and editing, right? So I want to give you a gap here and start again.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about gaps, but go on. I've got a great editor. But sorry, go on.
Whoever edits you are probably gonna hate me.
They will laugh and hate at the same time.
Put it in the promo. The editor will hate me. Yeah, so you decide if it's a good decision or a bad decision. My career started to move really, really quickly. And it started with an unexpected twist where my wife at the time said that she doesn't want to stay in New York. And we both came down to visit a friend who lived in Columbia, Maryland. And it's very green and very open and very suburb. And I wanted to keep my marriage together. And we moved to Columbia, and I have no job and no prospect and nothing. You guys remember the days of the Washington Post wanteds?
Some people do. Some people have no idea what is that.
Yeah, that's the paper that at the end is wanted, and you go to the listing. And the bucket that I was looking for, advertising, was always tiny. So yeah, I opened the Post. I was staying with our friend because I didn't have any apartment, nothing. And there was a design. There was an ad from a place called McVicker Design and Communication. It was a design studio in Shirlington. I was in Columbia. I pick up the phone. No, I send them by mail, a stamp, a cover letter and resume.
Pretty soon you're gonna tell me, David, you put it on the leg of a carrier pigeon to fly
Yeah.
over there.
No, this is the 90s, but we still people send cover letter and resume with mail. So I will close the loop for you how it ended up at the end with monster.com. By the way, it's kind of funny story. In any case, I went there for an interview. They really liked me, and the person who interviewed me was really impressed. And then her name was Jennifer, and she said, "Hey, I want you to meet the owner of the place." And then Jamie came down from the second floor, tall, skinny guy with like the hair is done, the whole thing, and said, "Oh, I've heard a lot of great things. I hear that Jennifer is very impressed. Oh, by the way, before Jennifer went up, she asked me, what are your salary requirements?" I have no idea. Really nothing. So I in my head, I quickly calculate. I knew that roughly what apartment rent will be. I need a car, blah, blah, blah. And I said, $50,000? I had no idea. And she said, okay. And she went up. And then he came down and said, so nice to meet you. I heard great things about you. I understand that you're available. Will you accept $60,000 as a salary? And I swear to God, I almost told him, I asked for 50. But
Wait, you're paying me too much.
I did. And it was a good start. I developed some good friendship there with few people. And 8 months into that, I was recruited to Static Advertising and Public Relations. That was the agency that Larry used to own. And that was a really turn because I moved from, being in a design studio, art director, which was my first job, technically, to become an associate creative director in at the time, the largest privately held agency in this region. and I started to run a practice there.
So from there, you ended up at Ogilvy, David, and you were at Ogilvy post September 11th, which, in addition to
Started
all the
free.
trauma, uh,
Yeah,
th- there was a lot of economic impact that came from it, both in the States and globally, but especially in the States, and impacting agencies such as Ogilvy. How did that go for you? When September 11th happened, a lot of organizations, the cash flow just died out.
yeah.
And now you were in an advertising agency responsible for other people.
Because all the business stopped, I was asked to reduce my workforce by a certain percentage. And I look at the people, it was difficult time. And I pick up the most unlikely person. His name was David. I actually liked him. He was quite smart, but a bit misunderstood within the environment. I didn't believe that he was appreciated by his peers. And as a manager, I could tell. And I was quite close to him. And so I called him to my office and I said, David, I was asked to make a reduction of people. It is up to me who I pick. They don't care. And I'm going to pick you. And here is why. You are a close friend of mine, and I admire you and I respect you, but I don't think that you are appreciated by your peer. And sometimes I don't think that you actually really, really like what you do. And I think that I might gonna give you here an opportunity that down the road you will actually do something that you really like and it'll be appreciated by the people you work with. And I know it's very difficult for you and it's very difficult for me, but I understand what you're gonna go through and I'm here for you, but this is my decision. So David and I stayed friends, and David later on released a documentary about basketball. It's called The First Basket. And I actually helped him, and he became consultant. And I think he's enjoying life a lot more than he used to over there. So
I, Actually, it's a lot of times when the fit is not right, the right thing for the individual is the same as for the organization, and for them to find other opportunities. Now, you ended up leaving Ogilvy to start Sage, but this is at a time where your wife was pregnant or had just given birth, which is typically not when people leave an established organization to start one of their own. What got you to do that, David?
well, I left just before she got pregnant, so that was okay. And then she got pregnant. The reason why I left is because I realized that there is more to life, and life is too short, and you never know where it's going to end. And so I left with the purpose of going back to Israel. The idea was not to start Sage or anything. It was really to go back to Israel. However, at the time, after being here for several years on a green card, we were close enough to apply for citizenship. And my mom and the family said, guys, you study so long, everything is slowed down anyhow. You save some money, enjoy life, stay, apply for citizenship, come back after. And we said, okay. So we stay. We had more time, which I think related to why she got pregnant. And a neighbor and a friend who was laid off one day, kind of we meet every once in a while and stopped by and said, hey, I have this idea. And I said, yeah, go ahead. He said, why won't you start your own agency? You're crazy enough, it might be successful. And I get unemployment, so you don't have to pay me anything. And I said, I don't know. I mean, why would I go through all of that? In a few months, I'm going back to Israel, anything. And I don't know, he insisted. I said, sure, let's do it. So that's how it all started. And Suddenly I got a business and another client and another client. And then my wife decided, guys, now I'm pregnant. Now we have to get the hell out of here. Because we got to the point that 5 people came to my house every day to do work. And I'm not talking about the mansion. This is a house, modest house in McLean, but very modest house. Uh, and yeah, so that's how the whole thing started.
And over the years, you, along with your partner Larry, grew Sage successfully. It's ups and downs like every business has. But 2 years ago, we were hit with COVID, David, which has impacted all individuals, all kinds of organizations. But I would imagine running an advertising agency, it had particular impact on you and your agency. How did COVID impact you guys?
So let me explain the time frame first. I was in Philadelphia pitching a large account on Tuesday, Wednesday of that March, beginning of March. I end up being in the office on Thursday when things start to hit the news and people talking about, okay, curfew, people don't go out, etc. And I talked to my IT people and asked them, can we work remotely? And they said, we're not sure how. And I said, okay, this is Thursday afternoon. I'm going to tell everyone in the company not to come to the office tomorrow, Friday. Let's try to figure it out. Let's try to everyone work from home remotely. Give them all the laptop loaner that we have. Let them take any computer that they want. Let's see what's going on. And we never got back to the office since. So that's what happened. Uncertainty, explanation point. How did it hit us? I'm humbled to say that in many ways, COVID was good for Sage and good for David. And it's very difficult to say because we didn't got hurt with the business. We actually got busier than before. It allowed me to become a much better leader, one that intuitively use his capacity of vulnerability and openness and honesty and direct approach to tell people when I don't know, to guide them through that uncertainty, to guarantee them that I'm available when they need me, to use virtual tools to communicate on a regular basis with everyone. And I think that helped me to become the leader who I am. I learned a lot through COVID. I think that both professional growth and personal growth, COVID was good for me. You know me, I'm an extrovert and I miss the social gathering. And I sometimes think that I forgot the skills of being in social environment. Not really, but but yeah, so that's for David. But Sage has done amazing job. Um, the team worked really hard. The team that we start when COVID started and the team that we have today, are you sitting? You're sitting, right? Changed
Yes.
by 50%.
Oh, wow.
We have a turnover of 50%. We never had that. We never had that before. So not just that we got really, really, really busy, as we start to get out of COVID, the biggest challenge we had is the turnover. What happened? We were busy, we were paying salaries, we kept everyone intact, we didn't let anyone go, we didn't lose any business, nothing. And that people leave, what's going on here? Where are those people going? but we survived that. I think we survived. And the core people, the leaders at this organization, we all come together, and I'm really humbled for this experience. It's not easy to experience what we did when I know that other organizations struggle. Now, our struggle is nothing compared to organizations that have to sit in front of half of their staff and tell them you have to leave. We no longer can use PPP to support you guys. You have to leave. We never had to do that. So I was spared that part, and I'm really grateful for being where we are.
And that's wonderful that you have been able to manage through the crisis, David. I'm just curious. You mentioned the turnover, which is extremely high, a lot of contributing factors to that. What do you believe has contributed the most to it? And how do you think the business will be different as a result of that level of turnover into the future?
Sure. I think the turnover allow us to add new people who better understand what we do. And Sage is doing, and people might not understand it, but we are fully integrated firm. We do advertising, we do public relation, and then we do a lot of sophisticated strategy plan and research and marketing campaign, mainly for organizations who live in the public sector. So it's either work directly for governments, both federal, state, and local, higher education and healthcare, but also to organizations that sell to that public sector. So for me, I consider the work that we do as a cause-related marketing. And here's why. Every time someone supports public sector that serves citizens, serves sick people, serves students, we do something to help them to serve them better. When we do work for government, we do work that informs citizens about what government is doing. This is all cause related. And in some eyes, people who wants to work in Madison Avenue type agency, this is not what Sage is. We don't do work that can compete with Madison Avenue. We don't experiment with marketing tactics because our clients need solid, proven tactics. So, but we are subject matter expert. At Sage, you can find people who understand cybersecurity and cloud solution and on and on and on and on. So that turnover allow us to be more selective in who we bring onto Sage. We also focus on more content creator at Sage, which helped a lot. And our reputation continued to grow. And we learn a lot through this turnover and how to realign the agency, which also related to the latest change of ownership of the agency. And altogether, in a way, is I know it's an old term, but it's a Sage 2.0 in a way.
So to that point, Sage 2.0, Larry Rosenfeld, who had been a co-founder and had been with you in this journey, retired. So you are the CEO and responsible for this Sage 2.0. What is your vision and where do you see taking Sage 2.0?
Actually, it's not my vision. It's a collective vision. So Julie Murphy is a partner at Sage, and she's president. And together, she and I are collecting ideas, visions, hopes, wishes from everyone at Sage. The first thing that we have done is we met with everyone in small groups and want to hear from them. I find that if I was in a military environment and I was the commander and I would tell them what to do, they would have done that. But that's a different form of leadership. And here, if I would lay down my vision and people don't believe in the vision, how hard they're going to work. And I work in organizations that the owners or the C-suite walk down the hall and say, think like an owner, think like an owner. I'm not an owner. I'm not even close to being an owner. How do you want to think like an owner? So in order to allow people to feel vested in this organization, I want to see that their vision come to fruition. I want to work with people, and not all idea will be executed, but we collecting these ideas together and we bring them to life. And from those meetings that she and I have done, even the smallest thing, people say we overwhelmed. We have so many emails. We have no time to think. So we already implemented that we're gonna avoid having between 9 and 10 schedule any meetings, right? Unless the client demand that, we start the first hour of the day a quiet hour. Let people the time to think. We implemented other program that enhance benefits and mental health, and I have to do it with them. I cannot do it by myself. Like if it's an organization of people, and without them, stage is nothing.
And that's a wonderful way of looking at it, David. I've had a lot of conversations with various thought leaders, and one of the ones I had a couple of months ago is with Rich Divini, who had been part of the Navy SEALs for 20 years, commanded many SEAL Team 6 missions. And what he talks about is the need for dynamic subordination and how the SEAL teams do that really well, which enables the different individuals and the team to lead. So, even with respect to military, especially special forces, that old version of leadership deciding what should be done, telling people to do it, and going at it is not the way it operates. So I'm really glad to hear that your perspective on creating that future vision is a collective creation of that vision and a collective people working together to achieve that vision. So you have a lot of great things that you have done and ahead. If you were to reflect back, David, and give advice to young David graduating from the university in Haifa, or even after getting your master's at the Parsons School of Design, what career and life advice would you give that younger David and young leaders?
So I feel that the young David follow his heart. He pick up something he really love, and I have never felt that I work a day in my life. And that will be the first advice I will give anyone before they pick a career, because I truly believe that if you do something you're very passionate about, you'll be successful doing so. I will advise them to know the importance of setting expectation, or in other words, own your no. Own your no, meaning that you are capable of, and I use the no as a keyword here, is knowing how to stand in front of a manager and respond to their requests with, I don't know how to do it. I have never done it before. I need help. I'm stressed. Teach me. All of those options are a lot better than to say yes and fail, which go back to failure. I think that we as a society, for many reasons, forgot, or many don't even know how to celebrate failures. I think the act of celebrating a failure is incredible because it's a lesson that you never repeat. Successes, when they come, they're easy to forget. Failure, you don't. I'll give you a real example. A month ago, one of my key people who I admire, she's a very hard worker. She's brilliant. And I give her more and more responsibilities, and she stepped into them, and she never complained. She called me Friday afternoon and said, David, I have to talk to you. I made a mistake. I said, okay, what's going on? And he tell me that mistake, and through the discovery of that mistake, we discovered that there was another mistake related to the first mistake, and those two mistakes combined are costly mistakes. And I said, listen, thank you for sharing all of that with me. I would have known about that anyhow, but thank you for sharing it with me. Here's what I want you to do tonight. I want you to go out. I want you to order yourself a bottle of wine and expense it on David. Give me, David, not Sage, the receipt. And I want you to celebrate that failure because I know that you'll never repeat it. And I told it to many other people at Sage. I think that we always have to explore the unknown. We have to try to become better. And along the way, we will fail. There is no doubt about it, we will fail. But when you do, share that with others. Be proud of that failure the same way you are proud of your successes, because then everyone learns. So that would be my advice to younger me. I had a hard time with accept that I'm a perfectionist. So it's much easier to give that advice to someone else than on myself. But I learned how to embrace that lately.
It is. And one of the things that happens, David, is we give advice to others that sometimes we need to hear ourselves. So it's good for us to repeat that as we reflect on it. Now, David, you also have a fun artist side to you. I see all kinds of delicious foods and things that you make that make me want to drop by your house and partake in some of the awesome food. And you want to become a stand up comedian. What is that aspiration all about?
You know that making food and make people laugh are very similar, right? The reason why decently good cook, forget it, I'm great cook, is because is because I'm not intimidated by cooking. I'm not following recipe and I improvising. And I guess I have good touch. But really the reason behind it is that I like to make people feel good. Can make them happy, but I can make them feel good. And I never thought that I'm funny enough to make them feel good laughing. So I inspire to be better at making people laugh. Sometimes I can, but my humor is a bit sophisticated, a bit dirty, a bit misunderstood, added to my accent. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I will.
Well, one of the things I've appreciated about you, David, in the many meetings we've been in, whether in person or over Zoom, you have a fun way to interject humor and bring laughter to the group. And that is a really important way for us to connect with each other, to connect with each other's humanity, and enjoy this process called life. There is no other end point. And I'm not sure any of us want to get to that end point. We might as well enjoy this journey. And part of the enjoyment of journey is a wonderful chance to share it with friends that bring a smile to your face, bring a joy to your life, make observations and comments that make you smile at the tensest times of any of the Zoom meetings or any of the others. So I think it's a real special quality that you have.
Thank you. I, I appreciate it very much coming from you. You know, we've been in many meetings, and sometimes you get my critical mind, and I come across very harsh. Uh, but I always try to wrap it at some point with some humor, and most of my humor is around myself. It's much easier to really am. You know me. It's really easy to make fun of me by myself and by others. So I have a raw material to make fun of.
You have the confidence and you have the sense of humor to be able to do that, David. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your own story, some of your own journey, some of your leadership ups and downs and leadership lessons with the partnering leadership community. I have cherished the opportunity to get to know you and call you a dear friend. And I really appreciate you sharing this on the Partnering Leadership podcast. Thank you so much, David Gorodetski.
Thank you, Mahan. Thank you so much for having me in this show.